Hi, beautiful viewers. Welcome back to yet another exciting episode of Upclose with Nakato. Today, we meet Ndyaguma Andrew, a former street child and founder of Creative Generation Foundation. This foundation is helping street children, an idea and a conviction he got while at the university. This is Upclose with Nakato, proudly sponsored by Vice Versa Global. Andrew, take us back about when you just joined the streets. How was it? How was life, on the street?
How I ended up on the streets, it was basically one evening. My uncle was supposed to pick me up from a taxi stage to take me back to my grandmother's house on a Friday. And that time he delayed, he took long. And I spent the night with the other kids on the streets. I actually didn't know them, they didn't know me, but I saw they were surviving and they were looking for spaces to sleep in during the night. And that is how I followed them to end up in that situation. So it wasn't easy at all because it was a new life for me. It was not something I was used to, but I had to switch to that at that time so that I can manage the situation. And because I had personal challenges as a child, there was no one I could open up to. I would follow any child because I see for them they are managing life. Life in the ghetto has not been easy. It's not easy to live in, but the people that live there usually adapt. So it's in general, it's not easy life, but people get to understand and adapt and live within their means.
Did you ever get a chance to study while you were in the streets?
When I was on the streets, I was actually connected to my family. My family knew I was living with an auntie in town, but at the time I had just lost my mother, and I would like not listen to anyone. I was living with an auntie. I was in day school. I would come back after school, or sometimes I would not come back after school. So even most of my family doesn't know that bit of the story because they would look at it as you got spoiled at an early age. You were exposed to different kinds of life. But to me, I believe they knew what I was going through, but they also knew they had something bigger as a family they were dealing with after losing someone that mattered so much to me. I can say I was on and off the streets for about 6 to 8 months. I didn't make a year because I would go back to school and go back home, go back to grandmother's house, go back to the streets. So that is why I say part of my story is not known because you can't trace exactly how long I was on the streets, but I did make a year. And in that process, I was rescued by someone I actually don't know, I don't remember, who took me to his house, followed me up for about 2 weeks, tried to take me to the police. I escaped from him, but finally I had an auntie I remembered called Sanyu. I remember my mother had taken me to her house when she was still alive, and I directed this gentleman who had cared he was concerned to take me back home or to take me to someone that knows me. And I took him to this auntie's house. It was about midnight or 1 a.m., but I managed to get there and they received me. And actually life changed from that night because they received me, loved me, and I was able to go back to school. People who knew me, who wanted to look for me, knew where I had been rescued to.
And then what about the Creative Generation Foundation? How do you come up with the foundation?
So after the whole process I was on the streets, I came back years later, very many years later, because after all those challenges and things I was exposed to, I was supported by compassion, by relatives, by a paternal uncle, my Uncle George and his family. They supported me very much. My Uncle Benon, they took me to school. They supported me through boarding school, even my siblings. And so when I got to university, while in fellowships in church, I was convicted so much to come back to these streets, to go back to those children that do not have a voice, that do not have someone to represent them. And that's how I got down to understand that and think about starting an organization like Creative Generation. I've worked with different organizations, I've volunteered with organizations, but it came back to me so that I could do something within my means, within my ability to do it as us and former street children. So the people we work with are basically former street children.
By names of such a brand, those are my home names, but I'm well known as Vega in the ghetto. After the influence of my stepmom, I came in the streets, and I remember by then I was 9 years. I could come in the ghetto, I could always go back, but whenever things seemed so hard before me. I come back, but it was really hard. I didn't like it, but I had to stay because I couldn't even withstand the influence of my stepmom. So I came to the ghettos where I found many people like me, and it was so hard, but the Lord helped us.
Creative Generation Foundation is a young organization, but very impactful, with a vision to unearth potential of young people, basically the youth, the teenagers, in school and out of school, because we believe there are those who have opportunities to go to school, but they don't have the ability to try out things on their own. So we try to give them some skills, some knowledge, to be exposed to different skills and lifestyles so that they can explore how their minds can be creative and do something to change society. So we reach out to street children and also reach out to kids in the community.
Which areas are you focused on, and is there a specific age range that you look at when picking children to support?
The areas we are focused on in Kampala, we have actually stretched beyond Kampala, but for the areas we are focused on in Kampala is Kawempe Division, where we have Bwaise, Kalere, Cheba, Ando, Kanyanya, and Kusatu, Makerere 3. That's where we've focused. And the age bracket is mainly between 12 years to 17 years. The younger ones who are between 11 and 12 are fresh on the streets. They haven't been on the streets for long. They can actually trace when they left school. And then there are those who leave home at a later stage of 15, 16. But the biggest number, the biggest age bracket is between 12 and 13 years old.
Abaana bano nabatandika okubeerako nabo, oluvannyuma nafuna okukwatibwako nga we beebaka basulaawo emisota we giyita, ne mpulira nga ate bayiganyizibwa abasirikale, bayiganyizibwa bannaabwe abakulu, bambi nga bugezaako okweyiya busobole okubeerawo okulya. Naye ng'ate ago agavubuka agakulu agakondo gajja gabugwira ne gabakuba embooko.
With Creative Generation Foundation, we've been able to reach out to over 150 children within Kampala in those areas we work in. The number fluctuates. You can't say I have a specific number and say I have 20 children for 6 months. Basically, the number fluctuates because the kids who come to the streets and go back home, there are kids who are on the streets daily, like the whole year they're on the streets. So the number keeps fluctuating, but the number that we can really say that we have impacted in a period of a year is about 150 children. In that number, out of 150, we are very proud and happy that we've successfully rescued and resettled about 14 children who are able to go back to school, who are able to go back home, and their life is now changing.
Bambi abaana ne baba balungi, ebaanywa ku njaga, baali bawulize, naye nga kyetusinga okufuba okubateeka mu mbeera ey'okwagala famire zaabwe, baddemu omutima ogwagala famire zaabwe, okwemanya nti naffe tuli bantu. Balowoozanga engeri gye bali ku street, ensi eyaabwe yakola ki? Yakoma. Mandi awo nga ndaba abaana bano bangi bajjanga naye nga balina ebigendererwa byabwe, naye ng'omuntu omukulu bano bajja ebigambo bye baayogera nabalaba nga balimu ekyama, ne banneegattako netandika tulira essanyu lya kitalo nnyo, kuba abamu batandise okumpa bazukulu. Ate era ndaba abaana b'abantu abali mu maka oluusi beba beegwanyiza n'okubeegwanyiza nga nemmanya nti tuli ku kituufu, tuba ku kituufu.
One of the biggest challenges that we face is violence. Violence from community, violence from the children themselves, and the leaders not being able to understand us because they feel you're working with children that are not connected to society in a certain way. They feel they are a loss to their generation. So that is where we come in to say these children are not lost. These children are not a threat. So the biggest challenge is violence, where leaders think you're using them for something and they attack you with threats of you should stop doing this, you should stop helping out these children. Then the other threat is where you find the very children you're trying to help not appreciating the effort you're putting in, and they become violent. They want you to treat them a certain way. which is very hard because you have initiatives you've designed, and the life you find is what teaches you now what they really need. So sometimes it's a challenge because someone you're trying to help is actually the person that is challenging you, is the one that is pushing you to change your approach. So it is not easy, but we still have to do it because we learn from them to change on the approach. The other challenge could be people we work with. There's a problem of language barrier, because there are people that mean good, there are people that even leave their countries to come to Uganda to help, but you find most of the kids that we are dealing with, that we are working with, have not gone to school, or have gone to school but did not learn how to speak English. So you have to find a translator, or you find even the language they have learned on the streets is not the normal Luganda that you'd have translated. You find it is more of ghetto language, of Rasta language. So you have to interpret something like 3 or 4 times for them to understand it. If you talk about a drug in its name, if you say maybe weed, to them it has about 4 other names. So for someone to understand exactly what you mean, you translate it like 3 or 4 times. For us as an organization, we have tried so much to approach it in a way that we skill them, we make products, and these are things that we can use to sustain ourselves. If it is food, if it is clothing, if it is medical care, usually we look within our means. But with funding, if it would be a big push, it would actually change the whole story, because when we have resources, we are able to reach more children. But with the numbers that we have, they are the very numbers that we use to make the artworks, the crafts, the number that we mentor to also become examples to these other children. We would be more in schools, more in communities, if we have resources, if we have a stable funding, where we have financial resources that can facilitate the process, where we have material resources that will help us in training, that will help us in mentoring these children to become better. So resources are really necessary for us to sustain our projects.
Tell us some of those big achievements that you have acquired since you set up the foundation.
The biggest pride I have in the work that we have done as Creative Generation is the fact that we have become a voice. However much we might rescue them, we might resettle them, by the fact that you have become a representation, you have become a projection of what they couldn't, it makes them happy, and it makes us happy, because if you do not birth, if you do not multiply, then you're not having any success. But by the fact that I can teach something and another child can be able to do it without me being there, if I can speak on something and another child can actually be able to stand and speak on the same subject the way I would speak about it, then it shows I'm multiplying myself through someone else. And I also believe when they learn that from me, they can also be able to multiply themselves, and it will become a generation of an improved society.
Any final words to the viewers watching us right now, and to the street children who have nowhere else to go?
Basically, what I can sum this whole conversation with is the fact that we do not need to undermine the abilities of our children, the children of the nation, the children of our communities, because society has judged children harshly, especially in Africa. But with children that can be taught, that can be trained, basic skills on how to manage life challenges in society, they have something within them. It's basically us to show them that you can identify where your passion lies and polish that, move with that, and it can change your story. If it is talent, if it is dance, if it is art and craft, that can be your tool to change your story and change your community. So parents, guardians, leaders, let's see the potential that is in these children, and we can actually push that to make them better and actually change the generation that is to come. That is why we are called Creative Generation Foundation.
In case somebody would like to reach out to you, how can they find you?
For those that would like to know more about what we do, know more about our projects, to know about our journey, you can visit our platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We are at Creative Gen UG. On all of them, Creative Gen UG. If you want to reach us via phone, we are on +256 784 432 133, and on Airtel we are on 0700 435341.
We hope you loved this episode. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Vice Versa Global. And until next time, bye-bye.